Global warming is in full swing on Earth, but the massive melting of glaciers leads to the fact that the temperature of the world ocean does not increase, but on the contrary decreases. The climate on Earth is beginning to change. Weather disasters follow one after another. The fall of huge hailstones in Tokyo Chiyoda district, prolonged downpours, numerous tornadoes in Los Angeles, snowfalls in Delhi, a storm surge in New York which flooded the Statue of Liberty. All this is just the beginning. At the conference UN in Delhi, Jack Hall, a paleoclimatologist, reports that a piece the size of Rhode Island has broken off from an Antarctic glacier. He is trying to warn the US government about an impending gigantic climate catastrophe, about the onset of a new ice age, but Vice President Raymond Becker does not want to listen to him. It is believed that the Earth's climate will become warmer. Professor Terry Rapson, an oceanographer from Scotland, supports Jack's views and subsequently gives him data showing that climate change is starting to happen too quickly. Soon, huge tornadoes hit Los Angeles, destroying the Hollywood sign, destroying the airport, and turning downtown into ruins. Jack Hall's assistants convene an emergency conference at which it is reported that a powerful air circulation has been discovered over Canada, temperatures are dropping incredibly quickly in Siberia, and a destructive typhoon is raging in Australia. After some time, astronauts observing the planet from the ISS will transmit frightening data. 3 huge cold cyclones form very quickly on the Earth's surface. The center of one of these cyclones turns out to be fatal for the crews of 3 RAF helicopters. The kerosene in them freezes, the helicopters fall, and people are frozen, barely leaning out of the helicopters. When the entire sky in the northern states of the United States becomes clouded, it begins to rain, quite quickly turning into snow, and the temperature drops well below zero. The US government decides to evacuate everyone who can still be saved from the southern states to Mexico. The rest must wait out the temperature bottom, a temperature drop to 100 deg C, well insulated in buildings, until temperatures rise again above the freezing point of winter jet fuel and diesel fuel, at which point the U.S. Army can rescue survivors. This evacuation plan was proposed by Jack. Jack's son Sam is at this time in an area that is impossible to evacuate at the time he is there. He and his friends Laura Chapman, Brian Parks, and JD are stuck in New York in the National Library building, half flooded after a huge tidal wave covered the city. Sam manages to contact his father by phone, and he gives his son instructions on how to wait out the temperature bottom, promising to save him. Taking equipment for polar expeditions, Jack sets off across the snowy desert, what remains of the northern states of the United States. At the same time, Jack's wife and Sam's mother, pediatrician Lucy Hall, refuses evacuation and remains in her hospital with bedridden patients until the last moment, until they are rescued. Professor Terry Rapson and his fellow scientists in a laboratory in Scotland, completely covered in snow, try to survive a little longer on 12-year-old whiskey used as fuel. Due to too many people, the US-Mexico border is closed, and evacuated US residents begin to ford the river on their own. Soon, a huge tent camp forms. U.S. President Blake's motorcade dies in a snowstorm, and Vice President Becker takes office. Jack and his associates Frank and Jason head to New York through the snowy northern states. On his way through Pennsylvania, Frank falls through a snow-covered window at the Sky Gallery and sacrifices himself by cutting the rope to prevent his friends from falling with him. At night in the tent, Jason takes out 3 mugs, and his friends remember Frank, who was like a father to them. In the morning, Jason cannot stand the cold and loses consciousness. Hall continues on his way, dragging Jason on a sleigh. After the water freezes, some of the people who took refuge in the library leave it, despite Sam's persuasion, intending to go south on their own. Laura develops sepsis due to an injury sustained while escaping a tidal wave, and Sam and his friends search the Russian ship Odessa, abandoned by water on the streets of New York, in search of medicine. Having found what they need, they encounter wolves that have escaped from the Central Park Zoo. One of the wolves bites JD, depriving the young man of the ability to move independently. Sam lures the wolves outside, and Brian closes the door, blocking the predators. Sam and Brian place the wounded Jay on an inflatable boat and escape. The wolves remain on the ship. At this time, the eye of the supercyclone passes through Manhattan. The temperature drops sharply, and buildings begin to rapidly become covered with ice from top to bottom. You can see how the Empire State Building skyscraper freezes and others behind it. Sam and his friends race against the approaching cold to the library. Having closed the frozen door at the last moment, the guys throw books into the dying fireplace to relight it. At the same time, Jack and Jason take refuge in an abandoned Burger King going down through the ventilation. After a few days, the superstorms subside. On the way to New York, Jack and Jason see sunken ships frozen in ice, a completely frozen Statue of Liberty, and the remains of people frozen to death. Having found the library using the coordinates, Jack discovers that it is completely covered with snow. The scientists go inside and find Sam's group alive. Jack sends a radio message to American troops in Mexico. Raymond Becker, now President of the United States, addresses the people from the U.S. Embassy in Mexico. A mass evacuation of survivors begins. Military transport helicopters fly to New York, collecting those who waited for rescue from the roofs of skyscrapers. Astronauts aboard the ISS see that the Earth's surface has changed, and the planet's northern hemisphere is almost completely covered with ice sheets. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe.